Welcome, welcome, and bienvenidos. So, depending on when you're listening to this, buenos dias, buenos tardes, or buenos noches, I am super excited to have you here on Tech and Tequila as we complete out the end of the year and, we get ready for Christmas. And most importantly, we have your tech being a gift for you and not something that the Grinch has put in your lap, right? Welcome, welcome, and bienvenidos. Thank you for joining us on the podcast, Tech and Tequila. If you don't know who I am, I'm Kat Lopez Shelby, and I'm the founder and CEO of Shelby Technology Solutions. But more importantly, you're here for Tech and Tequila, where we learn a lot about tech, and we may have some nice tequila drinks while we're at it. If you're new here, Tech and Tequila is all about everything technology based for your business. So what that means is we have suppliers on here to talk about how they can help you grow your business. We, have mindset coaches on here talking about how to help you grow your business. We're all about business and basically introducing you to different suppliers and different ways that help you within your business. So we're super excited to have Mr. Matt here from Momentum today. And I want to give you a chance, Mr. Matt, to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Before I start, thanks for having me on your podcast. It means a lot. I know fourth quarter is hectic for a lot of people. End of year, people have other focuses and priorities. So I'm very grateful to be here. And hopefully I can live up to the expectations of all the other guests that have been on the show. My name is Matt Firestone. I am the National Channel Manager at Momentum. I support the Central Region. I've been with Momentum almost a year and a half, but I've been in telecom for almost 8 years.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think as of yet we have had somebody on the podcast where they're like, well, I've been with this company for so long, but I've been around since dinosaurs roamed the earth, and maybe not quite dinosaurs, but around for a while,
You've seen a few things.
We've seen a few things. We've lived through a few things. I always tell people that I was around for the very first iPhone launch, and that in its entity, I'm not sure who all can remember that. It was an understanding of how important redundancy is. I was there till 2 a.m. finishing up orders because it just was a huge mess. But oh, wow. I digress. I'm super excited to have you here because I have actually worked with Momentum a couple of times. And I think that you guys are not necessarily a household name. You have a lot to offer for medium, small businesses, pretty much businesses in general. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to go over. So I'm just kind of going to get into it. But I know that your company has kind of evolved throughout the years. And you've been recognized multiple times on Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest growing private companies. Can you share some key factors, things that have driven this consistent growth for you all?
Absolutely. It starts really with the executive leadership. We've had a nice, fine structure of leaders that have come in and just with a mindset of not being complacent. And we've been around since 2001. And throughout all our years, we've gone from global network aggregation to adopting SD-WAN, to adopting cloud PBX solutions. And now where we stand at today, adopting Microsoft. Almost every single company has Microsoft or uses Microsoft in some facet. So the leadership, their vision, and their ability to identify emerging markets early to where partners can help their customers digitally transform confidently and still have that peace of mind of having a successful track record of being around since 2001. And I give a lot of credit. When I first started, I was at the company of almost 2 months. And they acquired a company called G12 Communications. And I didn't really know how to take it, but I was more surprised that in my brief tenure, they made an acquisition. And then about 6 months later, they made another one. So it gave me a lot of assurance that I made the right move to go into Momentum, that they're financially healthy and that they have the capital to go get, a companies that we're trying to fill technology gaps for, or just beef up our solution stack so it allows partners to sell more, but it also meets the demands that businesses need now to stay relevant and operate at a high and effective level. But I would say that's the secret ingredient. And, even some of those acquisitions, we have a couple people that are on the board or in a high executive leadership role. So it's not as if we acquired a company and they just kind of drifted off into the abyss. They're here, they're along with the vision, and we're just going to continue evolving as the technology market continues to shift and evolve.
Yeah, and I really like you talked about that, because I always imagine you talk about Microsoft and we talk about Teams a lot, and just that overall ecosystem that they bring to the table. And for some reason, in my mind, I hear this like in that song that's like shots, shots, shots. Every time I talk to a customer and they start about Teams, I hear Teams, Teams, Teams. How do we make it work? How do we keep it working? How do we do this? And it's interesting that you brought up, because the next thing I was going to ask about was kind of this acquisition of G12 Communications. How does this enhance, you all's voice-enabled Microsoft Teams offering and kind of the overall collaboration that you offer?
Momentum was already in talks of organically putting together a Microsoft Teams Operator Connect solution to go to market. It just wasn't really moving as quickly as the business anticipated. And there was an opportunity to where G12 could help fill that and get us that product added to our solution stack a lot quicker than continuing to kind of build internally. So when we acquired G12, gave us Operator Connect, but it's also really started opening up the door for some of the other ancillary services that it's really a must need now for businesses, just as the younger audience is coming into the workforce. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but just even simple texting SMS, it doesn't have to be a standalone application anymore. Now that can be one of many Microsoft native applications that can live in a dominant tool. So G12 was definitely a massive acquisition, and we've had a lot of success on working with partners when it comes to beefing up their talk track, just helping them be more comfortable talking to the technology, because it is a little overwhelming. The Microsoft licensing is a lot of licenses, it's a lot of features in those licenses, and it changes a lot. So what we do is we just provide that nurturing education, and a lot of that mind share does come from a lot of the G12 folks who have worked with Microsoft for 10 years or so, and just bringing that knowledge set to the Momentum side, to where in my role, I can help partners like STS and other partners, confidently find creative ways for upsell and cross-sell through Microsoft Teams opportunities. So G12 has just been a real blessing. And I've had the privilege of working with our now EVP of Product and Marketing, Rick Garcia, who is one of the co-founders of G12, being out in the field with them. We did a couple of Microsoft Teams roadshows from an education and enablement level, and just watching him on how he positions, why Microsoft is important. And it's not just, a flash in the pan type of subscription licensing. It's really business critical, but how companies can really take advantage of all of these neat features and work smarter and not harder.
I mean, I think that's the goal. Everybody wants to work smarter and not harder. And I think that you really I would say hit the nail on the head when it comes to talking about Teams, because people want Teams, people want to utilize it, and it does, but it's not as cut and dry as, okay, you've got this and you've got this. There's all the different licenses and the different ways, and how do we actually implement it and make sure that it works and it's integrated. And it can seem to be very, I was going to say, overwhelming sometimes. I mean, especially when you have anybody trying to transition. And one of the things that I noticed with you guys is that your services include adding dial tone to enterprise capabilities for Microsoft Teams. What advantages do you feel like that integration provides, for organizations that are seeking to have that unified communication?
It helps organizations digitally transform. Cloud has always been, in the now, but, even you scale back a couple years ago, companies were just gradually baby stepping and moving services into the cloud. So when it comes to Microsoft users, from a high level, it lowers the total cost of ownership, where companies don't need to be as heavily reliant anymore on on-premise equipment and moving things to the cloud. And it goes back to what I had mentioned a little earlier about most companies already have investments in some facet with Microsoft, whether it's on a licensing level, even as simple as the O365 stack. And what Momentum can help do is build around those licensing investments to provide added value, like a dial tone, to where you're moving everything in the cloud, but really the user experience has been, vastly different, and the accessibility to where Momentum, because of our partnership with Microsoft, as well as other cloud PBX solution providers, we can provide a unique level of failover redundancy too. So there's a lot of creative ways we can engineer voice solutions. Not every company is really, privy to Microsoft. So we also like to make sure that our portfolio has a nice diversity of different, trusted carriers that we feel confident that have shown that level of consistency and that level of trust. So when we're providing, whether it's licensing or any sort of hardware, that they're getting that assurance and confidence, knowing that we've done our homework and we're helping the business transform in the manner that they're looking to transform into.
And I think that's the big thing, because one time I was at a training that talked about the fact that the most amazing solution, improperly implemented, basically, for lack of a better term, is worthless. But having that implementation and making sure that it gets integrated is so important. And you touched on it a little bit, but I want to kind of go a little more in depth, because Momentum has award-winning cloud voice solutions. How do you see, and obviously I think this is huge with digital transformation, is those types of solutions supporting, especially modernizing their communication infrastructure?
Absolutely. COVID really changed everything. And surprisingly, it still is prevalent today. We've got hybrid workforces. We've got, some that are on, permanent coming in the office basis. But when it comes to those cloud adoptions and the Microsoft stuff, you had briefed on it a little earlier on just, sometimes it can be a little bit of a painful process. Implementation, you start having, if you have a bad implementation, you start getting a little buyer's regret. Did I make the right selection? Is this the right supplier to help me with my business critical needs, whether it's to remain operational or, more importantly, keep me ahead of the technology curve so I can take market shares from my competitors. But I would say from a differentiator standpoint, we're strategically structured and foundational level to where we've got the network connectivity component as well in the Microsoft environment. So it provides, again, a little bit more, another layer of peace of mind that, we've got investments with Microsoft and they got investments with us. So it's that nice, that uniformity of when businesses are looking to dial tone enable their Microsoft licenses, that we're giving them some assurance. And just from an implementation standpoint, it's really more streamlined when it comes to Microsoft deployments, because usually the longest pole in the tent is setting up the account profile. But what Momentum does is we sell the ancillary services. We're not reselling the Microsoft licenses per se. Those have to be procured by the customer, or they got to be either via a reseller, something. So there are some fiducial investments that the customer prospect would already need to have before we could even start trying to provide a service. But a lot of those account profiles, by the time we're having conversations with them, are already established. So it's really two more key variables after that. It's moving all the phone trees, the hunt groups, the automated attendance over to Microsoft, as well as porting numbers. And it's literally about it. And I'll give you a perfect use case. A couple months ago, we spun up 9,000 Microsoft Teams Operator Connect licenses in 45 business days. So as long as the data integrity is there and we've got all our ducks in a row and we have a roadmap in understanding when the customer's hard cutoff, go live, fully converted over date by, we can start managing expectations and making sure we have a structured rollout to ensure a smooth implementation, as well as a great start to the customer experience.
Well, and I think that's huge, the implementation and rolling it out, and obviously getting all that done in 45 days speaks volumes to being able to manage that and take care of the customer. There's one thing that you talked about that I really liked. And when you were talking about, the phone trees and making sure everything's set up, I think that sometimes that is what somehow gets missed. And I think Momentum does an excellent job of making sure that, okay, your phone system's working like this now. How do we make what you're going to work very similar, or I was to say very similar, if not absolutely the same? And you guys really, step by step, for lack of a better term, hold hands with the client and with the partner to make sure that it's seamless for them.
Absolutely. So. And it starts on making sure that we at least have direct communication to the prospect, so we can really make sure that we're capturing all the necessary variables. When I'm having conversations similar to this, and I get her, what's the difference between Momentum and other providers? And I say, we're an engineering-driven company. But what exactly does that mean? It means that our engineering team is involved in every step in the sales process, making sure that there isn't any stone unturned, making sure that we've got all the right variables. If there's certain critical pieces of information, our engineering teams are involved every step of the way, even when it comes to reviewing potentially proposed pricing, making sure that nothing's missed, making everything sized accordingly, because the last thing that someone wants to do is sign something and then realize, oh, we missed something, we need to do a supersede. Never fun. And it's time consuming, it delays. So we take a very mindful approach to make sure that we're bringing in the necessary resources to design it around the customer's business needs in the moment, as well as helping them along the way as the business needs dictate.
Well, and I think that's the big thing is that, having that, I'll use the term hand holding, but having open lines of communication across so that you're making sure like, this is what you want. And this is how we get from point A to point B and make it happen is so important. And there's something that you said a little while ago that speaks to the heart of my soul is about the importance of redundancy and having that backup. And one of the things that I think is would say super huge or important is that not only can you guys provide, Teams and Microsoft, but you'll actually provide global connectivity as well. And, I was going to say, you can't really bake a cake without flour. And, connectivity is so important when you're going to the cloud and we're digitally transforming. I know y'all have a ton of carriers and that, but how do you guys ensure that you are providing reliable, high-speed connectivity for your customers, as well as making sure that they're able to operate in a diverse environment?
Yeah, it absolutely starts with a boutique amount of carriers. We want to make sure that we're partnering with the right carriers, but we've got a plethora of them, just in case there are some tough areas where it's really challenging to source connectivity, providing a backup or even a tertiary. So we do partner with over 700 vendors across the country. And that was really how Momentum cut their teeth in the market, was providing reliable internet connectivity, domestically. And naturally that expanded to global connectivity, and just making sure that we're keeping all of our partners, whether it's on the connectivity side, the telephony side, the SD-WAN side, making sure that, we hold them to a high accountability. We have SLAs that we use as, that peace of mind approach to our customers to let them know that we don't just sign contracts and kind of forget about it. We keep them honest. And if there are some challenges, we make sure that we address them hand on, because, we want to protect the partner's relationship with the customer, because we wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for organizations like STS to work with. So your reputation's on the line just as big as, if not more, than Momentum. So when it comes to who we decide to partner with, we put them through the ringer. We make sure that we understand, what the financials look like, what's their track record, is this a partner or a vendor that we can trust to provide some sort of connectivity for a business that's going to be heavily reliant and is crucial to the success of their operations. So we want to make sure that we're just strongly positioned in every facet to where we've got a few options on a connectivity or a cloud level.
Well, and I think that, obviously it's important, but the other thing is having those different options means that in lieu of having to go out and source, like, let's say, okay, we're going to go to AT&T for this, and we're going to go to Sparklight or Spectrum or whomever, you can just go to Momentum and be like, okay, we need this to have redundancy. So, and I'm going to use the term SD-WAN. So we're going to bring an SD-WAN in, and then we're going to have, carrier A and carrier B. And we want to make sure we stay up all the time, or as much as physically possible to have that. And you guys provide service. Absolutely. So,
yeah. Right. Yeah. SD-WAN is massive still. There's different flavors of SD-WAN too. Because the SD-WAN technology is really going to help maximize the performance of those access, like the AT&Ts, whether it's a DIA, coax, point to point, that SD-WAN technology is really, really crucial. And, we partner with a company called Juniper Networks. Like people have heard of Juniper, but, they don't really think of SD-WAN too much. And even when I started at Momentum, I didn't know too much about Juniper. But what I learned to uncover very, very quickly was how uniquely positioned they are in their AI. It's the most beaten down term of 2024, and it's probably going to be the most beaten down term of 2025. It's been talked about. There's a broad spectrum on what AI is, the capabilities, but we've had a lot of success on helping companies find a different SD-WAN experience, and it really is derived a lot from the AI technology. And Juniper uses an AI assistant called Marvis. And this isn't just a bot or, a virtual assistant that's going to tell you that your circuit's not performing as expected or, your circuit's flapping. This is a ChatGPT type of experience. So it's NLP driven, natural language processing. That's kind of the ChatGPT engine where you could send it a command or a prompt. And it's really able to granularly dissect issues on the network. So for example, I could command Marvis, who are my unhappy users? Ann's having audio problems. Marvis is able to detect where the problem is. Is it on the device level? Is it on the application level? Is it on the LAN level? Is it on the SD-WAN appliance? Is it on the WAN? Very granular, more importantly, very, very quick. It's intuitive, it's fast, it helps companies save time from starting the troubleshooting process, whereas Marvis is doing a lot of that troubleshooting for the person that runs the IT operations or the team that runs the operations. But the best thing I really like about it, because a lot of people look at AI as a little bit of a threat too, is it still takes some human policing. It's not a set it and forget it technology. It's not self-healing. It's going to do about 80% of the work for you. It's going to tell you where the problem is, what recommended next steps or action items need to occur to resolve the problem. And it's really just going to help expedite, the time to resolution. But that's not just all it does. I mean, you can outsource it to run reports for you. Give me my top applications for the last quarter. What websites have we hit the most? It's very customizable, creative, but it's very, very unique from what I've seen in the marketplace. And I've had an opportunity to kind of educate partners and show them the demonstration of the capabilities, what's available, and why it can be very beneficial for companies that are looking to adopt AI into their operations.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I think when I personally think of AI, I would say I'm more of like an early adopter in general, but I think of it as a benefit versus as something, a negative connotation, because at the end of the day, you still have to you train AI, and then kind of what you're talking about. I mean, anybody who's had to tech in the field and you're like, okay, so give me like 45 minutes to an hour to like look at the network and be like, okay, no, that's not the problem. And you move on to the equipment. This can help to save companies per se time with their technicians or whoever's looking at this to be like, okay, the AI is saying this is the equipment. So you need to focus on versus we're not sure where in the environment this is. So you're not going in per se blind.
Yeah, it could be as simple as like a firmware upgrade, and you could schedule a day and time to do that to where it doesn't negatively impact business operations. One of the other real unique features is we've been able to help a lot of retail companies out on their Wi-Fi network, so they can have a clear representation on where to put the wireless access points, and it has a heat map. Green being strong signal, yellow neutral, red not good, or faulty equipment. So it provides that level of transparency to where if they're getting negative feedback, they can granularly see what things look like if things aren't operating properly. And it provides full level access to the orchestrator, system admins, IT directors. They can add VLANs, they can add subnets. There's no real restrictions. You just got to obviously be a little bit careful, making sure that you know what you're doing, and making sure that it could not have any sort of negative residual effects if changes are made. But it's really, really fascinating, just over, this year alone, just sitting down and going to, road shows or going to events and just kind of hearing all about what's going on in AI. It's a lot out there. And so what Momentum does is try to break it down and help partners on, here's what AI Momentum offers. Here's how you can help your customers out by adopting these types of AI technologies. And we haven't even talked about Copilot yet.
I know. I know with what we were just talking about, AI, there brings up some security concerns. And I know that you guys obviously take compliance and security very important. And one of the things that you all have that I know not universally everyone has as a supplier is you have secure networking and you cover GCC high for government contractors. How do you address what that needs to be and make sure that that's all covered for a client where that is needed?
It starts with our engineering team and making sure that if there's any other aspects for entities that require that GCCH or GCC high requirement checkbox, that we've got the right resources on. And a lot of the opportunities that we've been able to help partners out with on government related opportunities or partners that have organizations that have contracts with the DoD is going through the RFP process. It's just kind of how it is for those types of opportunities. But we really take a strategic approach, making sure if there's any other requirements or compliance needs that need to be checked. Outside of GCCH, we're also E911, RABOM, Carey's Law. So we check off not just the GCCH box, but we check off a lot of other compliance boxes in case it's outside of that government field for opportunities.
Well, I know, and I've worked with you guys on a project before where obviously HIPAA, which I'm sure any type of medical is like, we have to be HIPAA compliant. You all were willing to take that extra step. And at the time you're like, if we need to sign something, let's make sure we cover everything. And we're fully going through the new regulations, the new compliance. This was particularly with the hospital. Your company values, of course, delivering person's experience. And I know a lot of that is a customer-centric approach. How do you see the company providing that and making sure that, obviously the customer and the partner are both taking care of the essence and making sure it's smooth installation and a smooth process?
From an investment level, we want to be there in person, and we're willing to make whatever investments, whether it's us getting on a plane and sitting down with a customer. That personal touch is really where it has a big significance. And another layer of added value is sitting down with the decision-making team, just making sure that they know that we've got their best interests and that we're going to make sure that we have everything properly aligned to help them out with their digital transformation efforts, whether it's providing different layers of connectivity options, doing a hardware refresh and moving them to SD-WAN, or just kind of helping converge some of their applications into Microsoft to where it's easy to manage, but more importantly, now it can be accessible on a phone. Give you a perfect example. So we're one of the technologies that we're getting ready to go to market with is native Teams faxing. I don't think anyone really is thinking like faxing is going to be a big deal, but a lot of hospitals and other industries rely heavily on faxing. So when someone's not at their laptop or just sitting next to the fax machine waiting for an important fax to come through, now we have a solution where you can receive and or send faxing from your Teams client. It's right there. It's in your pocket. You don't need to go anywhere. We can put a gateway on the physical fax machine even to where it relays that fax to the application, to where it provides businesses and organizations opportunities to streamline more effective business processes and automate things to where it's lessening the amount of manual work to where you can outsource that to Copilot, or as I'd mentioned earlier about Marvis within the Juniper platform. So it's really about being there, but just making sure that the prospect or the customer also knows that there are other technologies that you could be taken advantage of, and making sure that they're aware, but if that does create an attention, making sure that we cover that as well. And you'd be surprised on how many we sit in on where it's like we hear, we didn't know that was even possible kind of deal. I want to learn more. Let's schedule another meeting or another call. So it's working hand in hand with the partners and with their prospects or end customers, and making sure that we're there, giving them that assurance to where they have a positive expectation early about momentum and what we can provide on a service level.
Well, and I was going to say, it's like you're speaking my language, because I know you said hospitals, but I am telling you, the number of oil and gas companies that still use fax machines and faxes, I think a lot of people would be shocking, because that's still huge. So, you cover hospital organizations, places like that, fax a lot in a roundabout way. Some of it's a little different than what you would think. But, obviously faxing is a little more like, let's say, old school. As we head into 2025 and obviously the future, what is, Momentum doing to kind of look at, challenges to anticipate in the future, and also, just preparing to navigate the landscape of technology coming up?
I would say the biggest one is AI. There's just so much out there right now. It's just working with partners to where, sifting through on this is really why it's important and it's how it's beneficial. I would say from another emerging, technologies that we're getting ready or we'd explore going to market with is adopting a SASE type of solution. Momentum does provide some security services. It's just not really a major wheelhouse product within our portfolio. So there's definitely been talks about doing a SASE solution because we had the network architecture already. So why don't we just layer on the different security components to where we can provide a more robust and more converged type of network and security combination. But I would say that those two is just, the AI definitely, and then just making sure on a security standpoint, because it's always going to be top of mind, especially when companies continue to move more and more into the cloud. There's more security gaps and security holes to where a lot of SASE solutions can help alleviate those pains.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think AI is here to stay. I'm just not sure, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you what all that's going to encompass, but I definitely know it's here to stay. I would be remiss if I did not ask you what you really feel are some of the key differentiators for Momentum. Like, if you had to name 3 things that you were like, these are 3 reasons to work with Momentum that we do the best at, and here's why to call on us, what would those be for you?
It's a good question. I would say our personnel. I mean, I mentioned earlier about our leadership, the tenure of leadership, our engineering, but the regional sales managers that I help support, they're just amazing people. They've got a wealth of knowledge. They've been in the tech game for years upon years, and just working hand in hand with them helps provide some assurance that, we've been around, but we've got the proper talent to make sure that we're helping companies digitally transform confidently and collectively based on what we could help offer in the marketplace. Experience. I mean, I think our engineering team, I think just about every engineer has at least 5 years of experience with us. So, we've got the tenure, we've got amazing elite resources to where if one of them engineers that is part of the meeting that might not know the answer or just needs to validate just to provide a level of assurance, we'll make sure we get the right answers. And then just co-selling too. So when it comes to those acquisitions that I refer to, G12, those relationships with Microsoft, to where if there are other resources outside of Momentum, like Microsoft leadership even, we can bring some of those other resources in to provide another level, again, peace of mind, just knowing that it's not just Momentum. They might have a relationship with Microsoft, but we work with their customer success account managers all the time on co-selling. So just in case, what we're offering, if there's certain aspects that are outside of our wheelhouse, we've got direct Microsoft reps that can come in and answer any questions or validate anything that a customer or prospect would want to hear.
No. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for joining me today. You covered a vast amount of information and definitely lots of points for Momentum. And if just to kind of go off what you just said, I would say, customer service, amazing staff with lots of education, background, making sure that you're taking care of whatever is needed, and the partnerships that you have, obviously with bringing on G12, and you said Microsoft Teams several times, but if you run into where there's a gap, the ability to bring someone to the table to make sure that you can provide the perfect solution is why some want to go with momentum. And I wanted to have you on the podcast because I have worked with you guys in the past, and I tend to work a lot in West Texas. And when you say that you're not afraid to fly someone down there, they are not afraid to fly someone down there to help make sure that installation goes great, that everything's working. And that is huge. Huge. I cannot tell you. So important. So
absolutely.
I want to thank you.
No, my pleasure. It's all about personal touch. We're channel driven. We love working with partners like yourselves. It's a blessing. And what I really enjoy about my job is I can help businesses, consultants, managed service providers find creative ways to upsell and cross-sell. I love, the opportunity of helping, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And we're really here till the end and want to help in any way we can. If there's things that we can help fulfill along, on the way. So we're really excited, and the mindset is we want to earn everything, and we appreciate every opportunity that our partners deemed we would be a good fit for their end customers, and continue to prove our worth.
Well, and I think that's the perfect place to end, because you are not going to be the Grinch for Christmas. You are going to bring holidays here if they pick momentum. So
he might be hiding behind that tree right now. I don't know.
It looks like a tiny tree, but there's, always a possibility. But yeah, thank you so much for joining today. And of course, all the information about Momentum will be in the show notes. And we look forward. Everybody have a happy holiday.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks again, Kat.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.